Alright, welcome back. So in my previous video about the Rankin and Bass revival specials, it was pointed out to me that I missed one of them. And at first I was like, how well connected is the Legend of Frosty to the main Rankin and Bass cinematic universe? There are some inconsistencies in there, but after careful consideration, it indeed fits. Just not the way you think it does. What do I mean? First, let's watch the story, and then we'll get into it after. Let's go! Alright, so we're in 2005 with The Legend of Frosty the Snowman, which takes place well after the Christmas in July special. So we're in the town of Evergreen, which is presumably the town that all the other Frosty specials took place in. It is run by Mayor Tinkerton, and with the help of Principal Pankley, the town is run with a very fun but kind of iron fist. All the children have to follow strict rules, and everyone's happy to do it somehow. So Frosty's hat was locked away in a bunch of storage crates. It breaks out of these crates because it seems to know that children need to have fun and imagination. So it does try to get the attention of Mayor Tinkerton's son Tommy, but he thinks he's hallucinating and he doesn't really want much to do with it. Now Tommy likes this girl named Sarah and he tries to ask her out, but he just can't really get it right. So the hat goes to some of his other friends, including Walter, and Walter flies around town with the hat, eventually crash lands in the snow, which makes a snow pile, and the hat is on top of the snow pile, so like that, bam, Frosty is back. And more of the kids have Frosty sightings and they all have more fun. They all want to, do their own thing now because, Frosty is kind of helping them do that. Of course, Mayor Tinkerton and Principal Pankley don't seem to really like that because now the kids aren't following these strict rules that are fun for them, allegedly. All the parents are up in arms too because now suddenly their kids are not following these rules and not listening to them and not doing their chores. It's this darned Frosty, this magical snowman. Principal Pankley ain't having none of that. While the kids are all having a whole bunch of fun with Frosty, Tommy stumbles upon an old comic book, which is a comic of Frosty the Snowman and his original adventures in town. In it, we find that there's this little boy who is having fun with Frosty, but his father doesn't believe in magical hats and doesn't want him to believe in Frosty. And this father is the legendary magician, Professor Hinkle. So how Hinkle went from chasing a snowman to the North Pole to just not believing it's real is kind of a far stretch. Maybe it's what keeps him sane after all these years, I don't know. But it turns out this little boy is Tommy's dad, Mayor Tinkerton. He just lost his belief in magic and his imagination, and the rest of the story is blank. So as all the children around town are having more fun with Frosty, Tommy is given more responsibility and he still doesn't have a full belief in Frosty, but he's slowly starting to get there. Mayor Tinkerton is starting to not know what he believes, and therefore Principal Pankley is taking more mayoral power there. In fact, he becomes the new mayor because that's how you get a new mayor. The old one starts believing in magic. And so more pages of this Frosty comic book start appearing, and Tommy sees that when Principal Pankley was a child, he didn't want anyone to believe in Frosty. So he took the hat and he locked the hat up in all these storage crates and chained them all up to make sure the hat never escapes. And now fast forward, Principal Pankley steals the hat from Frosty again, and all the kids are devastated. So now that Tommy knows what is going on and what has happened, he rounds up all the kids in town and they go to the school to get the hat back. For some bizarre reason, the hat is in a glass display case and it has an alarm on it. So the kids do steal the hat, it sets off the alarm, that wakes up the whole town, and as Frosty is reanimated, all the parents finally get to see this Frosty character. And now they're all like, okay, I guess that's cool. Mayor Tinkerton gets his mayoral powers back, he remembers Frosty, and that kind of changes his tune on how he's running his town. It's not so strict anymore, people are now allowed to have fun and allowed to use their imagination. At the end of the story, we get to focus in on the narrator, who is voiced by Burt Reynolds, by the way, and we find out that the character is a much older version of Tommy Tinkerton, and he even married Sarah. So a happy ending for everyone indeed. So this one is definitely pretty cute. There are some pretty good themes in there, like jealousy, as we see with Principal Pankley. He's been jealous of people his whole life. He always craves more power, and if he can't get something he wants, then nobody can have it. It's also a story about lost childhood, and I guess lost innocence, seeing as all the rules were so strict in this one, for kids and parents, until they were all convinced to just let loose, and then things are good. So at the end of the day, fun is good. This is probably the first special out of all these that doesn't really have any songs in it. It's all just story driven, so that's pretty neat. It's technically a remake of the original Frosty the Snowman, but it's still pretty fun. Lots of new characters, good times, a really good special. So I know these are just children's TV specials, but all of them work together well, and there is a continuity to the storytelling. To have something blatantly out of place doesn't make sense to everything that they've established and build upon. So I'm just trying to make sense out of it. So there were some inconsistencies with this special and how they tie into the Rankin and Bass cinematic universe. So the problems revolve around Frosty and his hat specifically. specifically. So we find that the hat has been locked up for around 20 to 30 years, and that would place it around the end of the Christmas in July special. And once Frosty is brought back, he never asks about his wife Crystal or his two children Chili and Millie. If he was away from them for so long, wouldn't he be concerned about how they're doing now? And maybe trying to get back to them? Also, this hat was in the possession of Professor Hinkle. If you recall at the end of the Frosty the Snowman special, at the behest of Santa Claus, Professor Hinkle had to let Frosty keep the hat. Also in the Legend of Frosty, his family name isn't Hinkle, it's Tinkerton, so Professor Hinkle was probably just a stage name. Also, Professor Hinkle doesn't seem to think that talking snowman can exist and there's no such thing as magic hats, even though he went all the way to the North Pole to follow a talking snowman to get his magic hat back. Also, in the original Frosty the Snowman, it was Karen and her friends who first brought Frosty to life, and in this one, it was a young Mayor Tinkerton who did it. So these things don't add up. But here's how I think they do. So at the end of Frosty the Snowman, Santa said, if you're really good, I might just give you a gift. To which Hinkle says, oh, maybe a new hat. And I think he does get a new hat from Santa, and it is this hat that is featured in the Legend of Frosty. And this hat also happens to be magical like the last one. So the key is the hat. Now, if this is indeed the new hat from Santa Claus, it kind of proves everything. That this is not the original Frosty. This is a new Frosty. And that would mean that there are actually two Frosty the Snowman out there. This is like the Thomas Riker fiasco from Star Trek The Next Generation. We even see at one point in The Legend of Frosty that Frosty builds a snowman just like him, and the two of them are laughing and conversing with each other. Now, I think this is the storytellers telling us that there are two Frosties. There's the original one that we've seen from all the Christmas specials before, and there's this new one with this different hat. But it's got the same magic in it, so it produced the same results. A walking, talking snowman. And I think with all that, it all works together well with the original Rankin and Bass universe. Because you're actually not following Frosty, you're more following the lineage of Professor Hinkle. And I think that's why it's called The Legend of Frosty the Snowman and not The Continuing Adventures of Frosty the Snowman. So I think Professor Hinkle kind of just dismisses the whole magic hat fiasco that he had back in the day, because back then things weren't really working out for him at all. He was a bad magician at that point. Nothing seemed to be working for him, and he was just trying to grasp onto anything that would actually help him out. But now, as we see with his gray hair, he is older, wiser, he is a good magician, he has a wife and a kid, he has stability. I think mentally he's at peace now. So he just sees his old North Pole escapade as just some kind of stressed out fantasy or something. And with that, it does work together for me, and I think it's actually pretty wonderful. Right on, and there you go. So I hope you guys really enjoyed this as much as I did making it, and hope you have a great day. Thanks.